Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place.
Let's do it.
Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar. Today we have a really cool guy on the show. Congratulations to Jacob Blount. He's been married 3 years and he's still married, so that's awesome. Jacob is a guitarist and songwriter. He first picked up his acoustic guitar at age 15, and he also started playing bass in high school. He went to college and realized that music was what he wanted to do for a career. Started playing guitar with a fast-growing college ministry in 2002, and he traveled and played in this genre for 10 years. He spent 3 of those years with a band called Rush of Fools from 2009 to 2012, and he wrote and recorded one record with them in 2011 called We Once Were with producer Dennis Herring, who also produced Modest Mouse, Counting Crows, Elvis Costello, Buddy Guy, and The Hives. What a diverse... Wow, that's awesome. I would like to be that guy.
Yeah, Dennis he's good at what he does.
Holy smokes. In 2009, Jacob released an album called Age of Anxiety. The Age of Anxiety hasn't ended, I suspect, but under the moniker Jack. In 2012, he moved to Seattle, and then a few years later, he moved to Birmingham, Alabama, which I think is where he's from. We didn't talk about that, but we will. 4 years later, he moved to Nashville and began writing for and with other people, from country artists to pop artists. He also started doing some sync work, which we've talked about on this show a number of times before. That's where you produce and put together songs for movies, TV shows, commercials, and that's spelled S-Y-N-C. And it's a very lucrative field, and you got to be really talented to do that because you have to move with the speed of lightning and the dexterity of a lizard. Specifically writing, and he was doing it specifically writing, performing music commercials, which is very cool. And he just wrapped up 2 songs for Joann's Fabrics commercials. Do they have those in Nashville? They have them here in Tampa.
I haven't looked for. Maybe I should.
You should, man. Yeah, they sell, like my wife used to do. She went through a scrapbooking phase there for a minute. Mm-hmm. And now I think 10 years later, we still have like half a room of scrapbooking. So
beads and stickers.
I'm not going in there. You're crazy. I don't know what that. Soon he'll be headed back into the studio to record some new music he's written. He also spends time working as a photographer. He does really cool work, primarily shooting food photos with his wife, who's a food stylist. They shot for everyone from HGTV to nationwide publications like Parade to this month they did a spread with Quest Bar, and those are really good protein bars. And they have a lot of good stuff. They have like ramen, not like giant noodles, soba noodles or something that's like...
Oh, really? I haven't seen those.
Well, yeah, because I'm like a sort of bodybuilding guy, and I'm always like... And I have a crap metabolism, so I'm always eating discipline. So it's like a massive bowl of noodles, and it's got like 3 grams of carbohydrates in it. Really? Yeah. And I like them, but they make you fart, so I had to stop. That's the only reason I stopped. They were really good, but I have enough of a problem with that. My wife survived 25 years. I can't keep subjecting this. Anyway, man, I'm really happy you're on the show. You're a good guy.
I'm glad to be here. I'm honored to be invited on the show and referred by Kevin.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Wait, who referred you? Kevin
Smith.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. He's a really cool guy. Drummer for Goodbye June. Yep. Man, I saw his photos on Facebook. They're all over. They're rocking. I hope they come here so I can see them.
Oh yeah, they're a good show.
Hey man, you've got you have a really interesting background, and you're obviously a creative. What are you working on now musically that you're looking forward to the most?
Right now, really, it's just the songs I've been kind of like the sound I've been working on for the last few years, and it's kind of what I think reflects myself the most. It's personal songs I've been writing for myself, and so I've been trying to record them, for the last 2 years, but it just hasn't worked out. So I think I'm going to go in and do kind of like a couple of live, kind of, I don't know what you call it, but just basically instead of just music, there's going to be a camera set up as well, and then use that to kind of continue to move towards working on my full length. So,
well, that's awesome. Plus, your camera skills are probably going to be light years beyond the normal guy. So, no, you could like pop those up on YouTube, and you can get some good traction with them.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. And like you said, it helps when you can set up the camera yourself and that kind of thing.
For sure, man. Hey, what happened? Question: what happened to Rush of Fools? Because you guys were a pretty hot band at that time in the Christian music genre, and then they just sort of fizzled out. What was there? Not like a gossip story, but is there like? No, I'm not looking for like dirt.
Yeah, sure. But no, they're still rolling with it. As best I can tell, there was their first label there with it was a tough interaction with them. So it was kind of a lot of stuff out of their hands. Yeah, I guess that's probably the best way to explain it.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting because I only reason I said I'm not the gossip because I've talked to a lot of guitar players. When we first meet, and now it's usually like 99% of the time not a problem now because I'm always referred to somebody, and they're like, "Look, man, I don't know what you I'm just going to tell you up front, I'm not answering any questions about my artist." And I'm like, "What?" I was like, I don't even know what you mean. And like, well, if you're trying to get dirt, I'm like, okay, let me level the playing field here. Number one, I never heard of your artist, or I just I don't listen to country for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, number two, I hate reality TV. And number three, I don't care who he or she is sleeping with, or that's like not on my radar screen. But apparently, like a lot of these guys get calls and they're like,
really?
Yeah, I was like, man, if I ever have enough time in my life to be asking somebody questions about like that, then there's a big problem, man.
Well, I mean, I'd feel a lot more cool if I had the inside information on some salacious material, but it was nothing salacious. Just business.
Hey, so what prompted you to move to Seattle, and then you left a few years later?
Yeah, probably not even a few years. Honestly, I was with Rush of Fools for, really, it was about almost 3 years, and it just kind of like there was some internal restructuring, and I just kind of felt the need that I wanted to have I felt like I had more to offer than just kind of show up and play guitar, write a bunch of songs and only, have a few of them make it to the album and that kind of thing. I just felt like I had more to offer than just kind of basically show up and play guitar.
Sure.
And so
so you almost your role in there was almost more of a studio session player than a more creative that you'd want.
Yeah, I would say so. We kind of approached that album as the one that we wrote some songs together with. We kind of approached it more as a band, and that was a lot of fun. But it didn't hit the market that the market that our label tried to market it to. And so because of that, there was some restructuring and thought about how they were going to continue to be creative together moving forward. And so I kind of took that time, and I had some friends in Seattle, and I was just like, this is a part of the country that we didn't really travel too much, and I thought I'd go out there and explore what it would be like living up there. And I kind of wasn't sure. I didn't think it would be like I would put my body in the dirt up there, so to speak. I didn't think it was going to be like a one-way move forever. And so about 6 months in, I was like, I don't know, if this is for me. And I was making maps back home, and I began to realize,
that's a good sign that it's time to when you're making maps back home. Note to self.
But people are like, oh, you got to give it a year. And so I was like, all right, it's just 6 months. I can just keep pushing past this, And I kept making maps and kept figuring out when's the best time of year to move back. And, but I also kept kind of trying to be involved where I was at, because it was a blast, man. Seattle is a great place. There's a lot of great people up there. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. There's always stuff to do. I really enjoyed.
Beautiful part.
Oh my gosh!
It's just majestic. I couldn't even put it into words.
Yeah, it's unreal. Especially in the summertime, it's just it's incredible. But yeah, I kind of was like, well, I'll go home for Christmas and see how I feel. And kind of literally when I landed, when I hit the tarmac, I was like, yeah, I need to move back. I think this is the best thing for me. And so I was like, Seattle's great, but it's just not home. So that's kind of what I ended up doing.
Was that before or after they legalized weed?
Actually, when I left that spring, they had like the weed legalization and like, I guess what was it, Proposition something. And they had like the big party under the Space Needle and all that stuff.
That's funny. I went to Colorado, my wife and I, about a year ago now. And, we went into the just for research purposes, of course, we went into some dispensaries. Because we are in Florida and it's not legal here. It was really a trip, man.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in one of them?
No, actually, I've never been in one.
It was a trip. It was like, me, I'm from New York City, man. So I just go in, I'm just like walking through and they're like, sir. And I'm like, what?
Oh, yeah.
You got to give me your license. And I didn't,
oh, really?
Like, yeah, I just thought it was like Macy's, so I'm just going in there and to go shopping, right?
What's the latest sale,
Yeah, I just wanted, it was just really, and they were like baristas, we're asking them questions and they're like,
oh, really?
Well, this strain, and I'm like, yeah, they were like, well, this is our Colombian Sumatra, and if you have problems with dream stage coming too early in your sleep, and I'm like, what the? It was way over my head. So anyway, it was interesting.
So they took your ID, they like photocopy it or something, or?
Yeah, what happens is I think what there's legal regulations as to how much weed you can buy.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. So I think what they do is they take, which I think is it's a good idea, even though weed is not but like, I wish they do that in Florida. For example, we have a really bad problem with like opioids.
Oh yeah.
And they talk about, and I think there's something like that now, but they need to do that. I don't know that it's as important as weed to do, of course, as opioids. I mean, no one's like sitting there addicted to weed to the point where, they can't get out of the house. So, but yeah, so they take your ID, and I don't know if they photocopy, they log it in or something like that. But it was just, they're all very professionally run. Everybody was very nice. It was like they were like, they were very proud of their knowledge base.
Oh yeah, of course.
And it was interesting having never seen that before.
I have a friend who he's the like a, I don't know what you call it, like a co-owner of a medical software company. So they make software for medical purposes. I'm not sure exactly what part of the medical world that they sell software to, but we were talking about this, and he was saying like, the thing about marijuana sales now, for recreation to medicinal, is that it's a cash only business.
Correct.
Because they can't process, Visa won't process a sale for that in the States. And so he was saying like, you're talking about I might have the numbers wrong, but like a multi-billion-dollar
yes, that's correct,
cash only business, which is like unfathomable in today's world. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, and that's because they don't process it, because merchant accounts, those are regulated by national banks.
Right.
And so weed is not legal nationally, it's legalized statewide, so they have no way of doing that, no way of accepting it there. But I would think, having been in Colorado, and I don't know what the numbers are off the top of my head, but we were there, we spent some time reading literature about it. Any state that doesn't allow the sale of weed is just, it's just a massive, you could do a lot of good things with that money. A lot of good, and let me tell you, people are spending it on weed, whether they're buying it from, where all of a sudden this demand didn't get created. Like, you don't have, millions of new people suddenly smoking weed because it's legal. You may have some, but I just think, this is not to get off on a political show, because I am ill-equipped to talk politics about pretty much anything. So
I'm pretty sure pretty much everybody in America is ill-equipped to talk politics if you just log on to social media.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Right, it's very true. Okay, so then you moved back to. Okay, then you moved. So after Seattle, you moved back to Nashville, or you moved to Birmingham?
I moved to Birmingham. I thought I would just skip my way right to Nashville, and it would be, like the doors would be open, and it would just be, just waltz right back into kind of some of the roles that I had done in the past.
Okay. And Birmingham is where you're originally from?
Actually, Montgomery,
Alabama.
Yeah.
What was your childhood like? What was it like growing up for you?
It was great. I mean, I had lots of sports. I did choir until I got kicked out.
You got kicked out of choir? What's this world coming to, man? You're like the kind of kid, like if my daughter came home with you and said, I'm going to marry, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. What did you get kicked out of choir for?
As best I remember, some friends of mine convinced me that it would be a good idea. I think this is what happened. Some friends of mine convinced me it would be a good idea to flip off the choir teacher.
Oh, yeah, that's always a good idea, especially if you don't like her. Yeah.
No, I didn't have any problem with her. I just think it was like one of those things where, like, as a kid, you're trying to, like, make friends and, like, be cool or whatever. And they were like, dude, all right, on 3, we're all going to flip her off. And then they counted to 3, and I was the one that got caught. The only one that flipped her off. You're
kidding me. So they punked you.
Yeah, they punked me big time. And then I kind of like, we had this weird like study hall where it's just like me and the 2 people who just didn't want to do choir. And we just like sat there and like, wow. I slept. I mean, I don't remember. It's a really long time ago. But
Wow. So normal childhood sports, choir, church, regular stuff.
Yeah, all that good stuff. I mean, yeah.
Brothers and sisters, big family, small family?
Yeah, I have one brother. He's older. He's not a musician, and he's kind of he's a book nerd, but he's a minister. He's really into like history. Every time I go over to his apartment, he's like watching some documentary on like Nordic kings from 400 something. I don't know.
Yeah, but you know what? If he started a podcast doing that, he'd probably have like billions of followers. Well, I mean, it's these little obscure niches. I mean, as a marketing guy, I could tell you right now, those little niches that are sort of like, those are the ones where you can make a lot of money because there's not million. It's not like, how to make money in real estate. There's not a million guys trying to do stuff in there. Yeah, yeah.
Well, and he retains all that stuff. I mean, like every conversation we'll have, he'll just start telling me about like how it all interconnects with like modern day, and it's like, man, it's impressive.
Now that would be problematic, to be honest with you. Someone started talking to me about Nordic Vikings in my conversations. How about mom and dad? What did they do for work?
My dad worked in a warehouse, and my mom kind of like stayed at home but had some part-time jobs as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So when you were in college and you realized you wanted to play guitar professionally, what were you studying at the time?
It kind of one of those things where I was in this incredible band in high school. I mean, we had a chance to just probably play 3 shows, and that would have been our career. But we only played 1, so we didn't live to our full potential. But somehow, like playing in that band, that like, we rehearsed all the time, but like, we wrote songs and, like we had songs that we had written. It's just something about that. I just knew that like, man, there's something about this that's great. And I don't remember the contents of the letter, but my mom still has it. I wrote a letter because this was pre-email. Like,
Sure.
Yeah. I wrote my mom a letter that was like, this is what I want to do with my life. And like, I don't really know why like I had that impression, because it wasn't like I had this incredible experience or like that I'd watched other people have great success at this. I mean, for all intents and purposes, like I didn't know anyone who was remotely associated with the music industry. And then I went to college to be an engineer. I wanted to like.
Wow, that's totally the personality profile for engineer and creative is literally 180 degrees polar opposite.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like I went to college because I went to college thinking like I'm going to be an engineer and then get an architect degree and like and then be able to like create architecture that's engineeredly sound or something. I don't know. I had some idea about that.
That's a pretty cool idea, actually.
Yeah. Well, and then as I began my engineering path, and we started talking about like milling off like 0.01 micrometers off of the steel head I was just like, I don't give a crap about this stuff. And what did I end up doing? I somehow fell into industrial design, which was like,
isn't that like architecture?
Yeah, it is. Well, that was the what do you call it? The head of the department. I sat down with him and talked to him, and he was like, industrial design is architecture and engineering meeting each other. And I was like, wow, this sounds perfect. But at the same time, I kind of knew that I wanted to play guitar. I just felt like this. I felt like this. No one put this pressure on myself than myself that I needed to have this real degree or this like backup plan or whatever.
Sure.
And so I was like, well, if I have to do a backup plan, this is what I want to do. And so I started doing it. But he also said, like, if you want to work less and make more money, you should become a doctor. And he wasn't lying.
Wait a minute. I mean, work less? Those guys work around the clock. What is he talking about? I mean, physicians. I've had physicians of clients and friends. They never see their families, man.
So to not exaggerate, I mean, granted, I was also really involved with this college ministry. I slept about an hour a night for 2 years, and if I slept at all, it was just unreal. Because between doing projects for school and then like rehearsing for, our service that was on Thursdays to like playing out on the weekends, it just like it was too much. But I had this pride about like, I'm going to finish this degree program. I'm going to prove everyone I can do it. And like my senior year, I just was like, I can't do this anymore. Like my brain is ragged. I mean, like my whole body is just like destroyed because I just wasn't sleeping, which is so important.
Yeah.
And so like I went to my advisor and was like, can you look at my credits and tell me what can I graduate with this semester? And she was like, well, if you do this and take these classes, you can graduate this semester. I was like, I don't even care what it is. I'm doing that. So that's what I did.
Good for you, man. I give you credit because it's tough. I think it's a really mature decision to make at a young age like that, to say, you know what, this isn't for me. I think that's a tough thing to do. So, man, my hat's off to you for that.
Well, thanks. Well, and it was hard, too, because I felt like at Auburn, their music program was like...
That's your school at Auburn?
Yeah.
Great school.
And so, yeah, it was a great school for engineering and architecture and business.
And football.
Football. If you want to do your War Eagles. But like their music school was it was more built for educators than it was for like
performers.
And it was all built around like piano and choral, and there was no real like popular music kind of style stuff. And so it was just kind of like, but I was so involved at this college ministry, and I was like, well, so it never occurred to me that there was another option besides doing what I was doing, which was like, killing myself in the industrial design department.
Good for you, man. It sounds like you just were really, you had a tremendous passion of music, and you almost, I think everybody at times needs a sort of like permission in their life from somebody to do something. And and I know even in business, I've as a consultant, I've seen this with a lot of my clients, and sometimes it's just a friendly guy saying, "Hey, why don't you do that?" And it's like, it's weird. And I've had the same thing where I've wanted a buddy of mine or something to say permission to do something, and it's just weird. And it's nothing more than literally just some permission, like, why don't you try that? Or it's okay, you should pursue that. Yeah, I don't know why we're like that. It's just kind of.
That's true.
Let's talk about your solo disc, man, Age of Anxiety. So tell me about that. What prompted you to release it? And, did you play all the tracks on there? Did you have guys playing, other instruments or?
Yeah, so that was kind of basically like when I had done some work on some other people's records and stuff. And but had begun to like explore that. Well, what did it look like if I wrote my own stuff? And so I started writing these songs, and as I guess for this one in particular, it was like kind of written around the rise and fall of the relationship I was in at the time. And
you're a deep guy, man. I like you. No, seriously. I mean, like you're like a thinker, and you're and I've been lucky. Most of the people that I have met are like that. So, anyway, I'll shut up. Go ahead. I mean, interrupt you. I'm just, I enjoy talking to you is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Oh, thanks. So basically it was kind of that. And also me kind of, I don't know what you call it, like recoiling or trying to hash out all those years of not sleeping, like just really mess with my head and psyche. Like I can remember literally sitting down with coffee with people and being like, so what were we just talking about for the last 15 minutes? And they would have to like catch me back up on our conversation. Wow. And I would be like, oh yeah. And then I would like maybe figure out what I was about to say. And so that was kind of the thing. Like I was like, I didn't know. I was like, is there something wrong with me? Do I need to take these meds? And so I tried that route. And
are you a burnt man? That's what it was.
Yeah, I was burnt out. And I think at the time, no one, like, I feel like right now, like you can go to Whole Foods and get organic this and this kind of sleep aid this and all these things. And like people know like, well, for good sleep, you need to take, this or that and the other. But I mean, literally just a mere 10, 15 years ago, people had no idea. Like, it was like, have you tried, why don't you take all these pills from the counter? And there's nothing wrong with that. And I would say that there was a certain combination that helped me, but no one was into like the holistic look. Like, well, did you think that maybe not sleeping for 2 years could have been the problem to this? And, we should address that and kind of like find you a good sleep pattern. And like no one, that just didn't, that thought didn't exist in the mainstream. And so
it was just like pre or early web.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of right before like people started like, I would say like, I'm trying to think what would have been I would say the gluten-free or alternative milks really kicked that over into people exploring natural remedies or whatever before they went to like a medicinal route.
Sure.
And yeah, so I guess all I'd say is that was kind of the album was me kind of like dealing out with like all these things from not sleeping really for 2 years. And like my schedule, I remember times like most of the time I'd sleep about an hour a night, maybe 2 hours, unless it was the weekend, I might sleep longer. But like my Thursday to Saturdays were like pretty much I'd wake up for class on Thursday morning after sleeping for an hour because we had rehearsed the night before probably. And then I would be up all day class, and then we have to set up this huge sound system, and then we would play, and then I'd finish with that. And because I couldn't work for school all day, I would go to class. I would go to the building at probably midnight and work all night and then go to class and then do class all day and then come back and be like, well, I want to hang out and have some sort of social life. So I'd hang out and do whatever till about 3 a.m. Saturday and go to sleep. And that was a pretty typical Thursday through Saturday. So just like, you can do that, a couple of times, it's college, you're young, you can do that, but it's not a sustainable lifestyle. And
nor is it an enjoyable lifestyle, more importantly, at all.
Yeah, I always say I was 30% asleep and 70% awake, and then I would be 70% asleep and 30% awake. I was kind of never was fully awake or fully asleep. It's pretty bad. But anyways,
and so your album was basically your way of working through or iterating that whole episode of your life combined with this relationship.
Right. And looking back, I didn't realize how much it played with each other because because I didn't put boundaries within my school, like I didn't put boundaries on like, this is how I'm going to be healthy. Like this is how I want my college to look. And this is how I want my friendships to look. And this is how I want my, like, there's healthy boundaries that you have in all.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Relationships. And I had,
and they're very important.
very important. And even in marriage, you have boundaries because it's like, this is how I'm going to be treated. It's not like boundaries of keeping people out. It's more boundaries on like keeping yourself healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because I didn't understand that concept, like, there's just like, reeling out of that and like having to deal with like all the psyche, like I guess mental stuff that came out of not sleeping for so long. And then like then you start to like date people and like you're like like you get like so into it and you're like, oh my gosh, I know we're gonna get married because this, that, and the other. But
dude, I'm exhausted just listening to this story. I couldn't imagine living it. Holy crap.
Well, and it's all like because like your whole like psyche was jacked up, and you weren't thinking clearly or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of me trying to like deal through that. And I would say, like it helped a lot in ways that I probably never quite understand. But just getting to flesh all that out and get it all out there or whatever.
Did you do all the instruments on this?
Yeah, except for drums. I am not a drummer. So I had someone do drums, but I did everything else. And
bass, guitar, vocals. Was there keyboards,
keys, and that kind of stuff?
Very
I had
cool, man.
Yeah, a friend of mine was nice enough. His name's Chris Bethay, and he was nice enough to help engineer the whole thing. And he's actually now he's kind of starting to get some great traction too. He's right now working on a project with the Backstreet Boys, and that's incredible.
Awesome.
I don't know if I can say much more about it because I think they're trying to like keep it a thing, but that's really cool. He's really getting some cool stuff going on.
That's awesome, man.
Mm-hmm.
JAK, how do you say that? Is Jack or Jack? What is it? I don't want to mess it up.
That doesn't matter. That was the whole reason I like stopped the thing. Basically in college we had to brand ourselves, and I for whatever reason came up with that. It was like had the cool umlaut.
I was going to say,
A.
it's got an umlaut. Yeah. So how do you actually say that, just for my knowledge purposes?
I always just said it was Jake, but
Jake.
I don't know.
Okay. Just like your name.
Yeah, I don't know the official.
Yeah, I don't think so with the umlaut. I don't think so, man. I think you're violating some sort of German language structure there. Was like, so that was just a random moniker basically that you took because you had to brand yourself for some course or something, or?
Yeah, it was like a brand, and it looked cool with the lowercase J and the three dots cool, lined up. And
it would be a good clothing. Honestly, man, I could see like a clothing line called that, right?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, people would wear that.
So I kind of just put that on. I stamped that on pretty much everything that I did creative for probably until I was like, probably till I moved to Seattle, and then I was like, I don't know this. This just isn't. I don't know. It just isn't what I wanted anymore.
That would be a really like if someone asked for your autograph or something. That's a really cool thing to do. No, seriously, I think it is. People would be like, wow.
Well, that's what it was for the longest time. That's what I would sign every time. It was be that thing.
Awesome.
And it's cool. It just was between like trying to like explain it to people how to pronounce it or explain it on this and that. Like it was like, this is just it's just easier just to go by my name.
Well, yeah, I'm not as patient as you. I would have done something like JAK and then in brackets pronounce Jake. I wouldn't have the patience to that's my downfall. Patience. I wouldn't be like, stop fucking asking me. Just read the quote, read the parentheses. Looking back, how do you view that record today, both musically and as an exercise in helping you maybe deal with some demons you had at the time?
I think it was looking back. I think the biggest thing I've learned in life as I get older is that at the time I was too hard on myself and like thinking like, this isn't great. Like I kind of did this thing about 6 months ago where I kind of cleaned out my hard drive and went through and basically, I wouldn't say clean, but organized it. And I listened to a bunch of old demos that I had written like 10, 15 years ago that like before I just would have said I was, knew what I was doing. I mean, I guess I still don't. but like I was like, man, these weren't. I mean, like they're not great, but they weren't terrible. Like this could have been passable if I had like decided to do anything with it. And I think it's the same thing. Like I think that record, it doesn't necessarily reflect what I would say. Oh, this is what I would say. Oh, this is my sound, or this is what I want to sound like. But I think it was cool, and I think I did a good job with like, especially not really knowing how to produce a record, or not really being surrounded with people who had done that process a number of times, and just kind of figuring it out. Like I just kind of, it was really more of a showcase of guitar creativity than anything. And so like, I never felt comfortable playing them out, but I think some of that just might've been with what I was dealing with at the time. So yeah.
Good for you. It sounds like you've made peace with it.
Yeah.
It's good,
still,
man.
It's not out in the world right now. I mean, I'm sure it is somewhere. I mean, maybe I should do something with it. But
throw it up on CD Baby.
But it was online for a while, and then I kind of shut it all down. I don't remember when that happened. I don't think it was when I was with Rush of Fools, but maybe it was. And that was kind of basically right before I started playing with Rush of Fools. I had that out, and I was trying to play it out and play with some people, and kind of had a rotating cast of musicians. And but then when I got that gig with Rush of Fools, it was like, I mean, this is paying, and like it takes up. I mean, we were out almost like 200 days a year. So
wow.
Yeah, it was.
That's a lot of touring.
Yeah, there wasn't really a whole lot of time for much else.
So that's like probably 250 to 270 days a year max that you're not even home. So you're only home 1 out of every 3 days of the year.
It felt like that at the beginning. Like I think things kind of slowed down a little bit, just given some of the external business stuff that happened to them. But yeah, I mean, we were out, especially in the summer. We would play these youth camps, and basically for middle of May to the first week of September, we were just gone. Wow. I mean, because you'd go play these youth camps. So I mean, you just like set up shop at this like Student Life is one of the big ones, or like what's another one? I don't remember. There's some other ones, but basically you just show up and it's a camp for kids, and you're just kind of like the house band playing like church music, and you just set up on Sunday and you play, and then you leave Friday, and you may come back or you may drive to the next one.
Right.
Yeah.
I get you. It's a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about some guitar stuff. Who are your biggest influences guitar-wise?
It's funny. I think when I was younger, it was like, like Jimmy Page, Kirk Hammett. I remember me and a bunch of my friends would get together and like have the Metallica songbook, and we would all like, we'd all pick like a line, and we'd play these like 3 and 4 part guitar parts. And yeah. And I listened to a lot of like Dimebag Darrell and punk music and metal. That was kind of like what I was really into, I guess, when I was like, 15 to 18 or so. And then in my early 20s, I began to get into like, and this was like 2002, 2001, I began to listen to like Steve Ray Vaughan and John Mayer and the kind of all those people that go together. A little bit of Eric Johnson. And then as I got older, I kind of like got into more of kind of some of the experimental guitars, people like, and I mean, it's kind of the popular people like the Johnny Greenwood and Beck, Beck David Campbell. Yep. Yeah, he has some interesting stuff. And
Johnny Greenwood's from Radiohead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
great guitarist.
Oh yeah, just
awesome guitarist.
And all of those guys just think outside the box about like what it's just the sound, just come up with interesting sounds. And so I kind of got into that, and that's when I got into like pedal board overlord, so to speak. Like, I mean, I had a board the size of a, like a small yacht. It was,
but oddly enough, and I was expecting you to say like Freddie King or something, because I see you with a 335 online. I'm like, and as I'm ticking through these, Jimmy Page, nope, Kirk Hammett, nope, Dimebag, nope, SRV, nope, and I'm waiting for somebody with a freaking 335, and like so I love that guitar. That's my next guitar I'm going to buy. I think it's a beautiful sounding guitar. I mean, just an absolutely gorgeous guitar. aesthetically and sonically, and it's just wonderful. Where did that come in?
That was kind of more. I saw it as like a rock and roll guitar. Like I always saw it as like when I saw, I think Jet's very first album, they had this live DVD that I would watch, and it was like I was like, oh, he's playing this big rock and roll guitar. I want a rock and roll 335, and so that's kind of where it came from. Just like, and that was kind of what we were trying to do with Rush of Fools, was make this like 90s rock sounding album with and so like I was like, well, that's what I need, it's Bad to the Bone 335. So that's what I did.
Is there a story behind how you got that guitar? Is there a cool story, or just a regular guitar purchase?
A little bit. Like it's kind of a shorter story. It's not epic, but like I saw it on Craigslist, and I reached out to the guy, and the guy didn't respond. And then I waited a week and was like, what the heck? So I reached back out and was like, hey man, I really want this guitar. Do you still have it? And he was like, oh man, I thought you were a scammer. I sold it already. I'm like, dadgummit. And so about a week later, it pops up on eBay, like the next city over.
Oh, the guy was flipping it.
Yeah, some guy flipped it.
Yeah.
So I messaged the guy and was like, hey man, like I think I know where you got this guitar from. Like I really want it. And so we haggled on the price. And it's funny enough, the guy I bought it from ended up going on to create this like website called True Vintage Guitar, and he basically flips guitars. And his name's John Schultz, and he's crushing it. I mean,
is he? I'm going to call that guy because I'd like to have him on the show.
You should. He's doing great work. I'll get you in touch with him.
Yeah.
But he has a True Vintage Guitar. Basically, he only buys very specific instruments though. So it's not like he's not just trying to buy any vintage guitar. He's looking for very specific things. Very
cool, man. See, those little niches. As a marketing guy I've run a marketing agency 18 years, man. I appreciate stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's where the money is, in those tight little niches.
That's true, and I think he's kind of tapped into that. Like I think his thing is he's into one owner guitars.
That's great, man, because there's a lower risk there. It's easier sell.
Yeah.
You know what? I always find it odd when you call somebody that's selling something and they don't respond in anything. Because or like a business that you want some guy to come over and paint your house. I'm like, wait a minute. What is wrong with you? I mean, you're trying to get money. I'm trying to give you money. I never understood that. That always frustrates the shit out of me. I mean, it doesn't anymore because I'm just like, my buddy, he said to me one time, because Craig, your problem is you have much too high expectations. He goes, I think everybody is basically, going to disappoint me. And then if they don't, it's like, great. And you hate to think like that, but I think that's I think you have much less downside thinking like that than thinking, oh man, this is great, everything's going to work. I don't know, like, because I'm always an optimist, but I mean, maybe I should rewire that, because I never understood that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like it's kind of interesting to me when you reach out to someone, especially for a service like that, where you're like, I have money and I'm willing and ready to spend it. Yeah.
and I don't know about you, but maybe it's because I'm older, I will not call you a second time to put money in your pocket.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, because there's always someone else. Like, and my thought is like, if you're not like eager to get out there and get into what someone's calling you for,
right?
Then
what are you what kind of service can I expect out of you in the first place?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm the same way. Today's topic is consumer advocacy. What about amps? Every video I've seen you, and you seem like you're playing vintage amps. Is that your thing?
Yeah, I guess it always has been. Like my first amp that I ever had was like, this was whatever I could afford. It was like some Roland amp or something weird. And then my first real amp, that would say like this. Oh, this was like a real amp in the sense that it wasn't like budget, but it was something that I really like looked for and bought. It was a Fender Showman. It's like an old '64 Showman.
That's a great amp.
Yeah, it was super loud, and I didn't realize that's what I would have. That's what I wanted. So I cycled through a few more amps. Like I had AC30, had a deluxe reverb.
What did you think? What did you think of the Vox? Because I think I want to get one like a AC15, but I have to play it first. Of course, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it sounds great. It sounds good for like what you want it to do. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It just ultimately, I ended up cycling back to basically a Fender Showman. It's an amplified Nation. It's like 100 watt. It's kind of like a Dumble clone, but it's the clean one, the clean Dumble, and which is basically a modified Fender Showman. Like a big 100 watt amp modified, and that's kind of what I'm back to, and that's what I like. It's really loud, but it also has a lot of bottom into it that you can't really get with an AC30 or like a deluxe reverb or whatever.
I like a big bottom. Well, because I'm like you, I like the 335. So what kind of pickups do you have in that 335?
It's all original.
Is it the classic 57s? Do you know what's in there?
It's like I guess whatever they were putting in them in 1967.
Oh, that's a 67 335.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, dude! I didn't realize that. Wow.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's what John basically is into. Is like it's all vintage stuff. So it's like vintage one owner guitars, and that have some sort of a story to them.
Very cool, man.
Yeah.
What was your first guitar you got? Do you remember that?
My first guitar, actually, it's kind of a sad story. My grandfather gave me this guitar, and from my best understanding, it was his dad's guitar. So, I mean, this is like an old guitar. I don't think it was anything like incredible, but I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because one of my neighbors, when I was a kid, thought it would be cool to smash a guitar, and he decided that was the one he wanted to smash. No.
Yeah, that's another thing I don't get. If it's cool to smash a guitar, right? Great, do your own.
Yeah, and so
wow.
I don't know to this day what I kind of remember it was Sunburst, but I don't know what it was. I'm pretty sure my uncle took it to a guitar store to get it restrung, and the guy there. I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't have given it to me if it was anything that was like precious.
Like it wasn't a Sunburst 57 Strat or anything, I hope.
No, well, it was an acoustic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
a Martin.
yeah. So I don't. I mean, and given that it was my grandfather's dad's, I mean, this was definitely 40s territory. So I'm just gonna. Believe that it was like, I mean, it was like probably a K, which is still a cool old guitar, but at least it wasn't like exactly what you're saying, some pre-war Martin or some like, Gibson or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I never get that someone wants to go El Kabong with someone else's guitar. That
that's a good reference.
Did you ever see that show? I guess I'm a lot older than it was on me. Yeah. I love that guy, El Kabong.
Yeah,
that was, my kids are, my sons are 27 and 24, and I was always they never got to see El Kabong, another social tragedy.
I feel like that somehow related back to our earlier conversation. Like,
I used to love that show. You said you have a big pedal board. What are your top like 2 or 3 pedals, your go-to pedals?
Well, I trimmed it down a lot because it was just that exact thing where it's like when I was with Rush of Fools, we had 2 electric guitar players. Well, I had 3. So it was the singer would play an electric, the other singer would play an electric, and then for me there was like, if you're talking about like a big spectrum of sound, there was just a little bitty bit at the very top that was left, and so I would play these weird sounds, and so for weird sounds you need weird pedals.
Sure.
So I had like just a really big pedal board. But I pretty much pared it down to, I have pretty much 2 drives, a TS9 and then a Rat, and then compressor, tuner, of course, and then I have like a couple delay pedals, But it's definitely trimmed down to what it was.
Sounds very standardized right
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Slim and trim.
Cool. Yeah, I like being lean and what is it? Nimble when you have a little bit of. When I moved a few years back, man, and we had just as a writers read a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I literally had like 1,000, like more books than I would read in a lifetime. So I felt like it was like cathartic just donating all these books to the library. It was just really, now if I move, it won't be like an 8-hour process that I will be done in an hour and a half, 2 hours, man.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first record or CD you ever purchased?
If the 12 for a penny from BMG counts.
Yeah. What was the first one? I used to do those.
So my first 12, because I think they sent you all 12 at once or something like that. Let's see here. I took a note on it. Let me scroll down.
You actually remember the first 12?
I do. My first 12. I don't remember
Jacob,
all 12.
That's disturbing, actually.
But I remember quite a few of them.
Go ahead.
It was Blues Traveler.
Good album.
The green one. I don't remember which one that was called. Then it was Dave Matthews Band, Under the Table, and Dreaming. That's a great record. Blink 182, Dude Ranch, Bush, 16 Stone.
Really good album. That came out. That was pretty explosive, man.
Yeah, that was a great one. Collective Soul, the blue one.
Another good one.
And I don't remember the other ones, but the first one I bought in a store was Buck 09, 28 Teeth or something like that.
I never heard of them. So
like
this is
ska band.
So this must have been, if I'm going to get my time frame right, early to mid 80s.
No, actually, in Montgomery, everything's on about a 10-year delay. So you kind of.
So this is like mid 90s when you got these mid 80s. You know what? My wife's from England, and it's the same thing there.
Really?
Yeah. Like on the local level. Like her mom's always telling us, hey, watch these shows because they have some really good, we like thrillers.
Yeah.
But it's the same. She's just from a little small village, and it's the same thing. Everything's like 10 years back.
Yeah. That's pretty much it.
I get you, man. So you're married. We talked about that. 3 years. How'd you guys meet?
We were set up on a blind date for New Year's 2013.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Well, it was funny because Callie, she hates it when I tell my wife. She hates it when I tell this story because she's like, it doesn't sound like you wanted to go. But I'm like, well,
who cares?
I mean, I'm just trying to be truthful. I'm trying to be. The truth of the matter is, some friend sent me a text and was like, we need a friend that needs a date for New Year's. And I was like, I don't like blind dates, and I didn't know who it was. And so I was like, of course, if I did, of course, I'd have been all on board. But, I didn't, I just saw this text and I'm kind of like, well, I don't know if I want to go on a blind date. I don't like blind dates. I don't like people setting me up. And it turned out to be this married couples party. So it's me and her on this blind date at a house with a bunch of married couples.
Yeah, that's awkward.
Yeah. So, but it was still, we recognized the hilarity of it and had a good time. So
that's cool, man. Congratulations. That's really nice. That's a good story.
Yeah.
You have a lot of interests. Do you have any hobbies or interests outside of music? I know photography is one.
Well, I laugh because all my hobbies became jobs. Hobbies became jobbies. So photography, hobby, and then it became work, and then video work, hobby became work, music, the hobby became work, and so I don't know.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's lame, but Xbox is a hobby. It's the thing, I can do that and just kind of disconnect. And, of course, hanging out with friends, but I don't know that's necessarily a hobby.
Socializing, yeah, I don't know if it's a hobby. It's an activity.
Yeah.
So here's a question that I think you probably have a good answer for. If you can go back in time and do anything different, either business or personal or musical, obviously, what would that one thing be?
I wish that I could tell my younger self how important relationships are and how important the people around you are. It wasn't that I was mean or that I was self-inflated, but like I feel like that I was so focused on like playing music and becoming a better musician and, you know, taking the gigs that I could get, et cetera, that like I feel like sometimes I miss the people around me, you know, and that
Sure.
like and also I would say like tell myself like take the leadership roles that you're given because the person that gives it to you thinks that you can do them. You know, like I can't tell you how many times I had a chance to like become a leader or like take a role for this and that, but I kind of turned it down. I don't really remember why, but like, you know, looking back, I'm like, man, I really wish that I had taken the chance to do that or whatever.
Man, I really appreciate your honesty. That's a very truthful answer. Thank you. That's a a good answer, a really good answer as well. Who's had the biggest influence on your life so far?
Yeah. That's the only question that I have a question mark by, because I'm like,
I'm glad I asked it then.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. Like, I feel like that, you know, like. I feel like pretty much through college, like once college started, I just started moving around a lot, like trying to find, you know, take this opportunity or that opportunity to play guitar here or there. And because of that, I ended up moving a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think because of that, I have a wide breadth of friends, but like there's a certain depth of friends that didn't develop because I would like skip town, you know?
Yeah.
And
well, it takes time and intensity of contact and frequency of contact to develop friendships. So.
Right. And so like, and I think that ties in with the previous question was like, I was so busy trying to like chase down the next gig or whatever that like, I missed that like, that though that is important to some extent, like the people around you are like, you know, like your relationships with people and how you interact with them is just vitally important, you know,
sure.
You can't rise to the top by yourself. And it's not necessarily that you're trying to look for connections to make yourself better. But like, you know, like if you do rise to the top by yourself, I mean, you're there alone, you know,
no,
like,
you can't, it's not possible.
Yeah. And so like, you know, like you just have to be surrounded with people that, even if it's just from like a point where like, you know, like you're just supporting each other, which is like a dream of mine to be around, like, is that like that community of like people that are all there to like, you know, like, oh yeah, that's great. And they're, oh, that's great. I love what you're doing. This is great. Everything's going to be great. And even if it isn't, everything's going to be great. You're all together trying to make that happen. You know?
Sure. Thanks. That's a very honest answer. I think that for some people, and I've definitely been one of them, asking for help is difficult. And you're only, you said 31?
34.
But man, you've got plenty of time. That you figured this out now. You're home. No, seriously, you're home free. You're home free. No, I'm telling you from experience. You got plenty of time.
Thanks.
Honestly, man, you don't even worry about it. You figured it out. You're done. You're good.
Thanks.
What's the most important lesson your business has taught you so far about yourself or about anything?
Man, I think there was a time that I began to get jaded about the music industry. This was probably, I don't really remember when it was. I think it was sometime probably between gigs somewhere. And I began to kind of realize like complaining and like all that kind of stuff, like looking down and negatively on the thing, as I kind of realized like, you know what, if I don't like doing this and this is hard on me and making my life hard, I can do something else.
Yeah.
And I think that's what helped me realize like that music is about enjoying your time. Like it's about having fun and it's about like, yeah, I mean, there's a business aspect to it, but like, you know, like ultimately at the end of the day, it should be fun for you to do. And if it's not fun, just go do something else. It's okay. Like it's not like I think sometimes, I don't know, like it's like, and I think because of that, I began to realize that like, hey, that's what I need to be doing, is remembering that this is about fun, whether you're playing at a stadium or you're playing in like a coffee shop. It should be fun to you. And if it isn't fun, there's a lot of other people that are talented and have fun with it, that they need the opportunity. And, if you're not going to, you can get out of the way and let them have fun, and take the opportunity.
So maybe the lesson that you learned there is that you probably have a little more control over your life than you might have otherwise thought.
Yeah, I think so. I think that and also because of that, it helped me realize well, I need to be having fun. And if I'm not having fun, then what kind of music do I need to be playing, or what do I need to do to have fun? And that's kind of what I started looking back into, and then started having fun playing music again. Was like, oh, this is great. And then, was able to brush things off my shoulder where otherwise it would have really kind of affected me. I was like, oh, well, it clearly that wasn't the right connection to play with or work with. And, or they didn't seem to be having as much fun as I thought they were. And I definitely don't want to be around people that are kiboshing on, the enjoyment of music, you know?
Yeah. I think it ties in well with the other thing you said earlier, as far as how important it is to have parameters and boundaries to take care of yourself. Yeah, cool, man.
But yeah, that's kind of like a new thing, especially in the music world, where I think that so many people get so, I wouldn't say desperate, but they really want to be in the world and they want to have a job doing this or that they take any job playing, guitar or bass or drums or whatever for anyone, even if it adds so much stress to their life, but relational stress and
sure.
That kind of thing. And it's it's not worth it. It just isn't. There's other gigs out there, and at the end of the day, it's just not worth going through all that stress, Well,
I think in the beginning you have to, but there comes a point in time where you can say no, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Last question, man. This is a very tough question. What's your definition of happiness?
I think we touched on it a little bit earlier. Is it kind of that concept of being in a community of people that are creative and kind of all being able to celebrate each other's success and help each other out. And it's not necessarily a commune or anything. It's just there's nothing worse than when you're you go to a friend for to go hey man, I'm just thinking man, is this ever going to happen? XYZ career wise or whatever. And they're oh, yeah, I don't know, man. Music world, you never know. It's about who knows. And they're oh, okay, cool. And then you walk away and you're wow, I guess maybe this won't happen or whatever.
Well, you got to choose the right people to hang out with too.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I see as happiness is when you're around those kind of people that are it's not positivity, just blowing smoke up your butt, but
no, it's encouragement, man.
It's encouragement. It's just saying
very important.
Yeah, and I think that is a community of happiness is just being around people that are supporting and that are interested and they're well, I really want to hear what you've been working on, or and you say the same to them. I'd love to hear what you're working on, and then you hear it and she's hey man, that sounds awesome, and do you ever think about this kind of aspect? I have a friend like that, and I've sat down and shown him some of my stuff, and he's what if you sang this one? How would Prince sing that song? And I'm oh man. And then I go back and do it, and it's awesome. And I'm and invaluable, it made what I did better.
Cool, man. Yeah, it's having a supportive group of friends, and I'm lucky. I have that, and I will say one thing. A lot of people want that. I'm not saying you at all, but
Sure.
It takes work. It's like any other relationship. I talk to one of my buddies all the time, and it's man, I appreciate, we appreciate each other's relationship, and we appreciate that we're both willing to put the work in, because it's picking up the phone, once a week, twice whatever it is. It's
right.
not hard, but it is work. And a lot of times people don't realize, like having a good marriage, man, you just don't
That's right.
Let me tell you, I've been with Ann 25 years. We have a great relationship, but only because we've worked. It's not every day we wake up and you have you don't have to do anything. And it's just like magic. That's not reality, man. You got to work.
Definitely not reality.
So, well, cool, man. Hey, listen, I can't thank you enough for your time. Your website is at JacobBlount.com. Let me spell that. It's JacobBlount. Anything else you're working on right now? Anything else you want to promote besides the website?
No, that's kind of the big thing right now. I'm sure that somewhere out in the TV world, that Black Friday commercial for Joann's will be on. And
awesome.
Woohoo!
There you go, man. Hey, you keep cranking those out. Those are good pieces of business to have, man.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right, everybody. I thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Just to pass this on, this is probably around close to episode 80 something at this point in time, and I'd love to get some feedback from you guys listening. One way or another, do you like the episodes in the middle that aren't interviewed? Any comments, constructive criticism, like our page at facebook.com/Everyone Loves Guitar and feel free to candidly talk to me. I would definitely love to hear your thoughts and input, and I will respond to it as well, even if it's like, Craig, this sucks and I don't think you should do it. That's totally cool. That's it, man. Thanks so much to Jacob Blount, man. I really enjoyed talking to you. You're a good guy, and I'm looking forward to your next. I'm looking forward to your Jacob 2.0, man.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me on. It has been a pleasure being on talking.
You're welcome, man. Me too. Everybody, check out everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up and get notified about future episodes of the podcast, along with some other cool new things we'll be doing for guitar players. Now, be nice, go play your guitar, and have some fun. Till next time, thanks again for listening. Thanks to Jacob Blount. I'm out. Peace, y'all. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.